Alright, my super fam, so basically patch 5.2 live stream is just ended, and while of course as usual we're going to be looking a lot forward to a new upcoming patch, so technically speaking the thing that we look forward to the most as usual for every patch is going to be the character, and this time around we're going to be having our lovely Chasca to be the newest release 5-star, and going with that is going to be some interesting reruns options out there, which of course we're going to be discussing in this video, which I'm sure is going to be helping you out. Nutlin is finally here, and of course that comes with many new characters that you would want to pull, and I can guarantee you that Mavuika is going to be on the list. Now if you're planning to swipe for pulling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 20% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point, you can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. To demonstrate it to you, I've been topping up my Genshin account through Loot Bar, buying the highest Genshin package. The only information you would need to fill out is going to be your UID and server region. Then go through the checkout process. After completing, the top-ups will come to your account within 5 minutes. Usually it just comes instantly for me. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. Right, so first off, let's have a look into our lovely Chasca, who is definitely going to be the newest 5-star release. Now, I'm sure most of you have already looked into Chasca animation from live stream, which is, one of the most interesting character out there in terms of unique ability, because while we technically don't really have many characters that can literally fly, last time we only had Wanderer, and now we're going to be having Chasca in the addition. However, it seems as though she's going to be having the ability to be airborne a lot longer than Wanderer, especially when you are in Nutlin, which is really interesting. I really do enjoy that. However, of course, the ability of her flying isn't the only thing that's going to be making you decide to pull for a character, right? Which is why we're going to be looking into her skills right here. Now, overall, if you have watched the live stream, you can technically know that she's going to be quote-unquote an Unemo DPS character. However, she being an Unemo element technically doesn't mean she's going to be an Unemo DPS character because of her unique ability, which we're going to be looking into right now. Now, her normal and charge attack overall looks pretty simple, right? You're just going to be doing her normal attack as usual, which is not something you're going to be focusing. However, it's more going to be toward her charge attack, which we're going to be touching into her E skill. So basically, whenever you press her E skill, she's going to be going into her airborne state. Now, her E skill can be a little bit hard to understand at first. However, I'm going to be making it very simple for you guys to understand here. And so it's that whenever she is in her E skill mode and then you do her charge attack, when you hold it down, she's going to be loading up 6 bullet. I'm going to call it bullet. However, it is called Shadow Hunt Shell, but bullet is going to be easier saying. You hold down until you technically charge up a 6 bullet, and then after that you press shoot as if you are doing a bow character charge attack. Now, what's interesting about Chasca bullet is that they do have the ability to change the element depending on which other elemental character you have on your team. So I'm going to be making a very simple example for you here at first, so that you guys can easily follow along. For example, if I were to be running Chasca in, I would say a monoprior team where you have Chasca, Bennett, Dia, and then Kazuha if you like him there, then with her E skill alongside with her passive talent, how the bullet elemental conversion will work is that the first 2 bullets are always going to be Unemo, which is her own element, if she is at C0. The 3rd bullet, you're going to be having your passive talent applied. There are going to be percentage of that bullet being an elemental type corresponding to the character available on your team. So for example, here we have 2 Pyro character and 1 Unemo character. So how this is going to be applied is that you're going to be having a 66.7% chance of that bullet being a Pyro element, and a 33.3% chance of it being an Anemo element. Basically, each of the elemental type have a 33.3% chance of it being available. Since we have 2 Pyro characters here on the team, that number goes up to 66.7. Now, of course, Chasca is an Anemo character, which technically we do have 2 Anemo characters on our team. However, Chasca Anemo element is not going to be counted, and we're only going to be counting the 3 remaining teammates on her team for this passive talent on her 3rd bullet. And then for her remaining 3 bullet, they are going to be the corresponding elemental type of each of your team members other than Chasca from left to right, depending on how you position your team, right? So for example, I have Bennett, Dia, and then Kazuya. The bullets are going to be Pyro, Pyro, and then Anemo. So for another example, if Chasca were to be on a Cryo Freeze team, where you have her run alongside with Furina, Kokumi, and Shanha, for example, right, then again, her first 2 bullets are always going to be Anemo. Her 3rd bullet will have a 66.7% chance of it being Hydro, and then a 33.3% chance of it being Cryo. The remaining 3 bullets are going to be Hydro, Hydro, and then Cryo. Now obviously, if you have 3 different elemental type on your team members, for example, you have Furina, you have Yai Miko, and then you have a Bennett, then the 3rd bullet is going to be a 33% chance for each of the elements of Hydro, Electro, and then Pyro. Then the last 3 bullets are going to be, of course, in your order, which is going to be Hydro, Electro, and Pyro. That's how it's going to work. Her elemental burst is rather simple as well. She first fires off an AoE Anemo damage huge bullet that goes off, and then after that it's going to be splitting out basically another 6 shell that hits your enemies. Depending on what elemental type your other party member has, it's going to be assigning 2 of those shell towards that element. So again, if we're going to be taking the example of her being on the Mono Pyro team, 2 shell will be corresponding to Bennett's element, 2 shell corresponding to Dia's element, and then 2 shell corresponding to Kazuya's element. So that's going to be 2 Pyro, another 2 Pyro, which is 4 Pyro shell, and then 2 Anemo shell. For a passive talent, I've already talked a little bit about that, you know, the elemental type chances of conversion for the 3rd bullet. And then other than that, her shiny Shadow Hunt shell, which is basically the bullet that are converted into the other element, do get a damage increase depending on how many other different elemental type of party members you have on your party. So the maximum is going to be a 65%, which I believe Chasca Anemo element is also counted as one of the element here. So if that's the case, technically you only need another 2 element, which for example you have a Hydro Cryo character. That's already gonna like get you a maximum of 65% damage increase for her shining shell bullet. Now of course we still have to wait for the official information to confirm this, but hopefully that's going to be the case. Otherwise it's going to be rather annoying to have to run like a 4 different elemental teams just to get her extra damage bonus from that. And then her second passive talent is basically whenever your team member triggers Night Soul Burst, she's going to be shooting an extra Shadow Hunt shell to do more damage for you. So those are very simple passive talent that doesn't require you much to actually trigger it. You're just going to be basically triggering it normally whenever you are using her as the DPS character. Right, so basically that's going to be her skill and kit. How you're going to play her is rather easy, right? She acts as if she's a bow charging character but has some flying mechanic, and you know, bow this time around is basically guns and then shooting out bullets. Technically speaking, in one of her E-skill rotation, you can do roughly around at least 3 charge shot, which is something for you to consider in terms of your rotations and other support character of your during your elemental burst. Now, as I've mentioned before, even though Chasca is an Anemo elemental character, however, she is technically not an Anemo DPS, because first of all, as you can have seen, she has access to, you know, dealing some other elemental damage in her kit. However, when you look into her scaling, her Anemo damage isn't going to be good, or in other words, her first 2 bullets doesn't have really good scaling. Therefore, overall, she's not going to be a character that deals a lot of Anemo damage compared to, you know, she doing other elemental type damage. For her shiny Shadow Hunt shell has the highest scaling, which is what we're going to be focusing on building her around the most, right? Which does affect you looking into how you actually build your artifact sets. Because here's the thing, right? If she's not going to be doing much of an anemo damage, you're going to be having to look into her doing better in terms of other elemental type, which leads to her having different artifacts built. Therefore, for example, you're technically not going to be having an anemo goblet built into her. Rather that, you have to focus on one of the other 4 elements, which is, pyro, hydro, electro, or cryo, for her to do more damage. Or, if depending on whether or not if you have a good attack goblet, then you can technically slot that into her. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be going through her specific build too much here, because Chasca, as you can see right now, is technically a little bit of a complicated character. I wouldn't say too complicated to understand, but you do have a lot of variety of options in terms of team building, which of course I'm going to be leaving that in another very specific deep dive video for Chasca, as we already spent a lot of time talking about Chasca at this point in time. But overall, from the look of it, since Chasca is a DPS character, she's basically more or less going to be a preference DPS character at this point, because of course her scaling isn't to the point where she's going to be better than any of the top tier DPS right now, especially when Neuvillette literally in the same patch as her, right? However, I do say that she has a very interesting kit in terms of mix and matching her build with a lot of different team comps that she can fit into her, and I would say that she's probably one of, if not the DPS character that can technically fit into the most different type of team comp in the whole of Genshin Impact right now, which obviously brings a lot more in terms of fresh air in terms of her playstyle for those of you who do love looking into Chasca. But I can almost say that her power level, unless by the point her official release, Hoyoverse just decide to literally buff her to an insane numbers, she's not going to be better than many of the top tier DPS character out there in the game. So therefore, more or less, she's still going to be pretty much a preference character. Moving on, we have Lyney, interestingly, coming back right alongside with Chasca. Now, it's interesting to see Lyney coming back this early, because if I'm not mistaken, he just had his rerun back in 4.6, which is right alongside with Alekino. So yeah, as I've mentioned, not that long ago. Whereas we've had so many other characters who's dying to have their rerun, like Shanha, Ganyu, those kind of characters. Poor them, right? Now once again, Lyney is a preference DPS character, especially when you have him at C0 without his signature weapon. He is a little bit tough to play because you do struggle a little bit in terms of clearing out your enemies in fast rotation, because Lyney value actually goes down the longer the rotations or the battle tends to be. He's more or less going to be pretty much a nuker, where he loves to take out your enemies in at least 1 or 2 rotations only, which is why Lyney's constellation, if you are looking into it, is technically very good. I've already mentioned or talk about Lyney in my video of constellation investment, because Lyney actually has some of the more valuable constellation investment out there in the game if you do decide to look into it. Because once you get more of his constellation, of course after you do have his weapon, then he becomes such an amazing nuker, because his ability to clear out your enemies just so damn fast. For now, he gets an extra Grim Malkin hat, and we already know how powerful the Grim Malkin hat can be, not to mention now he technically has 2 spawning on the field, and that's for C1, right? If you have his C2, now he's going to be having even more crit damage, and I probably don't really know what to say in terms of having more crit damage, and he's going to be even better character in terms of taking out your enemies very fast. However, again, if you don't have Lyney and you're already deciding to pull for him, then probably you're someone who really loves Lyney out there. But obviously, if you're considering a character for the meta, Lyney is definitely not going to be the character for you, especially at C0. It's a little bit harder for him to place. He does get knocked back, so technically speaking, he would love to have his shield, which is where now, yes, Zhongli comes in. And yeah, Zhongli finally has his rerun once again. I think the last time he was here was like 4.0, so quite a long time ago. However, of course, Zhongli popularity isn't as high as it was back all the way when he was released, because back then the game was a little bit harder, because many of us don't really have that good of a DPS character. Then we kind of struggle in the Abyss, where Zhongli actually helps a lot with our survivability and buffing a little bit. And then after that, as many DPS characters come, Zhongli popularity went down quite a lot. However, Zhongli popularity gained a bit after Shilonen come, because now you can have both Shilonen and Zhongli on the same team, and one, you have good geo resonance, and two, on top of the resistant shred Shilonen already have, Zhongli also have access to shredding as well as tenacity, where you get more attack buffing from his pillar attacking your enemies, right? So that duo is pretty nice if you do consider on your team. Now of course it is not a must pull for Zhongli at this point in time, even though his popularity is gaining back a little bit. I'm just saying that his values are still there, but it is not a must pull for him. If you do enjoy him or you're still having trouble with survivability for your team, then yes, Zhongli is going to be helping you there. However, the more you hit the end game, the more character you pull for, better DPS character, like investing into Lyney constellation that I've just mentioned, it's more or less just going to be helping you clearing out your enemies so fast that you technically don't really need a shield in fearing of getting one shot by your enemies. Therefore, high attacking DPS character for your account that can clear enemies very fast is a very nice thing, which of course Neuvillette is right here. Alright, now I think Neuvillette had his rerun not too long ago. I think that was like 4.5. However, as long as he's back, I'm pretty sure many of us are happy. That's probably everything that we need, because Neuvillette is still, if not the best DPS character in the game, because he's a character that deals absolutely amazing damage in both AoE and single target situations. Plus, he is one of the most easy character to play in the whole damn game, right? That hydro cannon that he has especially clears enemies out so fast because of how good his scaling are just, a treat to have on most of your accounts. So yeah, I'm pretty sure most of us already have Neuvillette right now. It's going to be a bit weird when I see an account without having Neuvillette, in which case either one, you're just starting out, two, you don't like Neuvillette, and three, you've been skipping or you've been losing your pools and you didn't get Neuvillette before. But I'm pretty sure most of you are going to be getting Neuvillette here, which is why, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's still going to be on top of the pooling list for many of us. So that's going to be the case. Now, for any of you who already have Neuvillette and considering to go for more of his constellation, it's definitely going to be very good. Also, now the C1, as I've mentioned before, it's not really that needed, but if you do have it, it's a very nice quality of life increase for him, because while his C1 can be used and completed during his C0, right? It's not really that important, but if you do, you're getting more damage for him and easier team building. And then of course, if you do have his C2, that's also very good. However, from my perspective, as long as you have a Neuvillette and then you have his weapon, that's already more than good enough for a very good Neuvillette. Because if you do decide to invest into your other sub DPS character, like for example a Furina constellation, you can technically have more value off of it, because Furina can be used in a lot of different other team comps for you in the future if you do decide to go with that route. But obviously it's going to be coming down to your choice, but Neuvillette constellation's value is definitely still going to be there. So guys, those are going to be the characters that are coming in patch 5.2. I've already discussed most of it, and hopefully that's going to be a good reminder for you. Now it's going to be the time where I basically give my priority pooling list if I were to be the one who's going to be choosing as usual, right? We know that 5.2 is technically a filler patch, and our Pyro Archon Mavuika isn't anywhere to be seen just yet. Obviously, we still don't have much of an information going around to what Mavuika out there as well. However, we know that since she is an Archon, most likely Hoyoverse is not going to be messing up her as a character. Therefore, we can safely assume that she's also going to be a very good character that's coming in 5.3, which is also a consideration for you guys to pull whenever it comes to patch 5.2 and patch 5.3. Therefore, technically speaking, we're going to be seeing a little bit more information regarding Mavuika after patch 5.2 comes. So I definitely would recommend you guys to really wait for 1 to 2 weeks after patch 5.2 if you really are looking to make use of your Primogems most efficiently. Obviously, if you are going to decide to go all in anyway, then obviously Neuvillette is going to be the character that, definitely I would recommend you to pull if you haven't already got him. After that is going to be Chasca. Right now, I know that she's not going to be a top tier DPS. However, she can deal damage and she's a pretty interesting character to have around. Therefore, I still recommend her in the second place. After that, I would say, you know, either Lyney and Zhongli, depending on the need of your account. I say they're pretty much preference character at this point in time, and obviously depending on what you need, right? If you feel that you need more supportive character on your account, Zhongli is definitely going to be more value. Or if you're deciding to go for Lyney, pretty much going to be preference character, because again, as I've mentioned, Mavuika, the Pyro Archon, another Pyro character, is going to be coming pretty much down the line. So that's something you have to look out for. Which is, guys, I think that's all I have to say regarding the characters that are going to be coming in patch 5.2. I hope that the video have been very much helpful to you. If you do have any question, leave it out in the comment section and I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. Again, guys, if you are having trouble saving up your Primogems to pull for some of these characters, don't forget to check out loot bar, as I'm sure they are going to be very helpful to you. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future Genshin videos. I really appreciate you guys staying with me to this part of the video, guys. And with that, I wish you a super day and I will catch you on my next video.